Hello, my name is Dale DuFay. I'd like to thank you for watching, even though I'm really sorry I don't allow comments. After 3 years of, haters out there, and there were even people posting links to porn sites and dating sites and things like that. It was just too overwhelming. I know 95% of you are very positive and uplifting and have very, very nice comments, and I always appreciated those, but it was just too overwhelming. Death threats and all kinds of haters out there. For some reason, certain people don't like to hear good news, and basically, that's what I believe the Mandela effect is. It's good news. In fact, the prophecy in Revelation chapter 10, verse 7, which I firmly believe is about the Mandela effect because it talks about a secret, sacred secret being revealed, or some translations say the mysteries of God being revealed. And what could be more incredible that has been revealed than what the Mandela effect's revealing? It's revealing really what creation and life is all about. It's revealing that, and this is an important aspect of this video and all of them really. The bottom line is it's revealing all life has a parallel existence, all life on Earth, including the Earths themselves. And this parallel existence is in one dimension. It's not dimensional. Certainly there are other dimensions, but they are parallel as well. And that's a really amazing thing the Mandela effect's revealing. So how could we have a parallel existence in a one plane in a single dimension? All, apparently it's within the Milky Way galaxy, but I'm sure that obviously the galaxies are parallel too. So it could encompass the entire universe. And the parallel universe theory is correct in that it talks about parallel, but it the theory goes that every decision you can make, you will make. But the Mandela effect has revealed that that's not the case. Certainly not with me. I know my case is not typical, but I find that every reality I'm in did the exact same thing, even though some of the surroundings may be different. But I always made the exact same decisions. But that's the very important thing to always remember and understand. What the Mandela effect's revealing is that we have this parallel existence. So what could it entail when it comes to your soul? Now, every time I'm find the portion of my soul that I was born with, well, first of all, let's talk about, really what the soul is all about. Not just human souls, all living souls, because they have a parallel, everything's parallel. So what does that say about us? That our soul is splintered and fractured. It's as simple as that. There's, people that been talking about this in certain Eastern religions that discuss that it's quite obvious our soul is splintered and fractured. They don't know, of course, where the portions are, but the Mandela effect's revealing that each portion of our, fractured and splintered soul is housed or coalesced in a replica version of yourself, thereby sharing your soul. I mean, this is obviously a different reality we're in now. And obviously we were all here. So what happened, so this replica version of yourself that you're currently in was sharing your soul. It's as simple as that. And the shifting aspect of the Mandela effect, where this quantum shifting is happening with our soul, the soul, that what portion of my soul that was in this replica version of myself is simply in another replica version of myself. I always liken it to musical chairs, without the elimination. When we're in that quantum flux, every portion of our soul is shifting into another replica version of ourselves at the exact same time, instantaneously, in a blink of an eye. That's what's so amazing. It's showing us that we've always been here. This reality has always existed, and you were here with a portion of your soul. I mean, it's very obvious. There's no other explanation. That's another reason I don't allow comments, is people, have their own ideas about what the Mandela effect is doing. It seems like people are more interested in what it's doing other than what it's showing us. But they have their own ideas, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But to me, it's very obvious. And I'm not even college educated. I'm not no physicist or geologist or theologian or anything. Although I'm religious, but the Mandela effect's revealing that, you know, there's no such thing as a one true religion. And it's just remarkable what it's revealing. And then every once in a while, I, I get comments about, what about residual evidence? And I've done videos in the past about it. Again, if you buy into this theory that we have a parallel existence on a multitude of Earths in this one dimension, then residual evidence is easily explained. Just like everything. That's what's so nice about this theory, is that it ties in very well with explaining everything. Why we humans do the things we do, why we get deja vu, why we experience jet lag. All that is explained very simply by this theory, in which I consider a fact, that we have a parallel existence. It's very obvious. This replica version of myself is different. It has different fingernails, because I'm a nail biter all my life. I know what my fingernails look like. And there's still that version of myself with the smooth fingernails. It's still there, that replica version of myself where this portion of my soul originated. It just has another portion of my soul in it, experiencing the exact same thing I'm doing this exact same video. But of course, certain things are going to be in different terms because of the geology of the Earth is always different in each reality. And I call these Orion dwarfers. They're very, very similar. All the Orion dwarfers are very similar. But they do have subtle variations and differences, and that's how you can tell you shifted. Currently, I haven't noticed any differences really recently, because again, they're so identical. It's very difficult to tell if you shifted or not. But I always use Google Earth, and I do have a channel called Plurality of Earth that delves into the geological differences. And again, I'm no geologist, but the Mandela effect is educating us in every aspect: geology, physics, mathematics, theology, you name it. Everything is explained. And again, getting back to the residual evidence, of course you're going to find it. We should expect to find it. In fact, there's a great explanation for it. I always use the example of the designer of, say, a logo. Many people are involved. And of course, when they're designing, say, a logo, this designer is going to have multiple choices in front of him that he designed. Choices for the owner of the company that wants this logo to have it, multiple choices. In every reality, they have the same multiple choices of this logo. And many people are involved in it as well. So the more people involved, and keeping in mind, of course, that everybody involved, including the designer of the logo and the owner of the company that wants the logo and the company itself, are all parallel in this one dimension. Virtually everything is happening virtually instantaneously. Now, of course, the reality I recall, where this portion of my soul originated, is 75,000 light years away from here. Naturally, it's instantaneous, but there's going to be, when you're talking that distance, there's going to be a delay, in the instantaneous. It's instantaneous as we see it, but galactically, there's going to be delays. And that of course explains deja vu and many, many other things. Basically, I always liken every reality as a frame in a roll of film. Each reality is a single frame. And as the frame's going through the projector, it kind of blends our whole life together. That's why, honestly, we wouldn't exist without that quantum entanglement that's you're entangled with all the replica versions of yourself, and they're all doing the same thing you are, or you're doing the same thing they are. There's always, that's what life is all about. We wouldn't exist without it. So with that in mind, again, the designer of the logo is going to have all those different designs that they made on, let's just say, on a drafting table, on a sheet of paper. Let's say there's 16 choices or whatever, for the design, for the owner of the company or people involved in it to decide. So let's just say the designer of the logo with their parallel existence has the exact same number, 16 choices to make of this logo, and they're all identical, each one, not identical to one another, but identical in each reality, but yet different on the, choice, the paper, the drafting table with the paper, to showing all the choices on there. And that's true, and that's the, one thing that's going to be identical in every reality. But they, one reality is going to choose the certain logo, and the other reality, they're going to choose another. Again, the more people involved, the more there's going to be differences in choices. It always comes to the people that make choices. In the previous video, I think a couple videos ago, I talked about the editors. The occupation with more choices to make are bound to have more variations and differences in each reality. And of course, the same is true with designers and people who make these logos and whatnot. It could be anything, designing a house. But again, there's very few choices. The architect designs it and the builder builds it. But when it comes to logos, we're going to see, and other things, we're going to see that residual evidence. It makes sense. Think about it. Like, say this reality, they chose the Ford logo we're not familiar with. And of course, the reality we originated from, they chose a different logo. But those two logos were still on the drafting table in every reality. It was just the choice, the people involved. And again, the more people involved, the more likely there's going to be a variation. So what about the residual evidence, you say? Well, after they make the choice, the designer of the logo is not going to destroy all the other choices. Sometimes maybe they're supposed to, but they don't. You're not going to find that in the United States Mint, other than, say, the Liberty dime. I'll guarantee that in every reality, they had the choice of either Franklin Delano Roosevelt or Dwight D. Eisenhower. In every reality, but in some realities they chose Franklin Delano Roosevelt as the Liberty dime, candidate that won. Basically, both of them are appropriate for the Liberty dime. So both of them were, the choices that the mints had in every reality. And some realities, again, they chose, but they'll guarantee they destroyed, like, say here, if they had any drawing of the Eisenhower dime, or even had the die made, who knows? But they, once they make a choice, they destroy all the other candidates, let's say. So they're real careful in that. You're not going to find you're not going to find an Eisenhower dime or the die. You might find the drawing or something. But again, in other, companies and things like that, they're not going to be that stringent. So the designer's going to keep all the choices because they worked hard on it. And so over time, when they pass away or something, and their family discovers, all these other drawings, maybe they'll sell it at a garage sale or something. And boom, there's your residual evidence. You see where I'm coming from? It makes so much sense. Explain, again, this theory that we have a parallel existence on a multitude of Earths explains everything, including residual evidence, which we're going to see it. Sometimes you'll find a map or something that shows an ice cap, or an old globe that shows the ice cap in the North Pole, but it's not going to show Antarctica. But it must be difficult for globe makers, and that's another thing we have to keep in mind, is even though our souls portions are, everything's splintered and fractured, and some of our realities, that have been sharing our soul are 70 some thousand light years apart. We have to keep in mind that even though they're independent, each portion is fiercely independent. We have their own memory and everything, but there's this, you have to keep in mind that every portion of our soul is connected subconsciously, constantly. Think about that. Again, that's why we need REM sleep. They have no idea why humans need REM sleep. In fact, not just humans, but you could see it in your pets. You could see when they're REM. Now, nobody knows why we need REM sleep, but the Mandela effect is revealing why. Because we have multiple replica versions of ourselves that have been sharing our soul since the day we were born, all throughout the Milky Way galaxy, constantly connected. And the only time they're really in true sync is when, you're in that deep, deep sleep. REM sleep is explained thanks to the Mandela effect. But that shows also that every portion of our soul, although each portion is fiercely independent, again, they're constantly, every second connected on a subconscious level. So while a globe maker is making a globe, it must be very difficult because they have other replica versions of themselves constantly connected on a subconscious level, making the same globe, but yet representing the earth in their reality, which is different, vastly different. I remember, like many of you, that the reality that this portion of my soul originated from was a Sagittarius. I call them Sagittarius super Earths because they were massive compared to these dwarf Earths. The reality I recall, that Earth had a continent on the North Pole called Antarctica. Of course, it was underneath several miles of ice. The ice caps are massive there. Every reality has an Antarctica. But again, it must be difficult because they might subconsciously have the urge to put a continent on the North Pole in these dwarf Earths, but then they stop because there isn't, but subconsciously they must be toiling. You never know. It's really interesting. But there are still people who make globes out there, companies and whatnot, of course, and some of them are handmade. But I watched a show about a globe maker in England, how they still make them by hand and how just extremely difficult it is. And it must be that, reason because they're unaware of it, of course, but they're connected to other versions of themselves making completely different globes, vastly different, larger, of course they're all scaled the same, but I'm sure they got an Earth, this globe this size, in the reality I recall where there's Antarctica, but it's still going to be this size, scale. But it's just remarkable how, small these Earths are. In fact, the one whole side is the Pacific Ocean. It's always intrigued me. Sagittarius super Earths are more, the continents are more consistently spread out. And that, again, that proves that the Earths grow as they age. There's so many things the Mandela effect's revealing. And they obviously start from this galactic center where all matter is created in the galaxy. It's not a supermassive black hole like astrophysicists assume. Of course, that's just a total theory. They have no idea. But it's quite obvious the Mandela effect's revealing that all matter in the galaxy is created from the galactic center, including the Earths in the solar system the Earths are in. And they are identical as well. Of course, it's a larger the scale of every event is the more variations and differences. So there's huge differences in the solar system. I don't recall Mars and the reality where this portion of my soul originated had ice caps on it. That's crazy. they're so dry. The Mars and the reality I recall that it would have been earth-shattering news if there was so much as one drop of water found on it. But here it's quite obvious there's ice caps. There's quite obvious there's water there. No doubt life and things like that. But it's just somewhat interesting, these realities. They're so different. And you go out and at night, and a clear night, you can actually see several planets. I mean, we were taking pictures with a Nikon P900 camera. We were taking pictures of the moons of Jupiter. Right? That's crazy. In reality, I recall the planets were too far away. They looked like the stars in the night sky. You couldn't distinguish between a star and the planets. But here, you can. It's crazy. You can actually see Mars. You can see it's red and everything. It's crazy. But everybody, it's always been like that around here. Nothing's different. That's why, it's another thing we got to keep in mind. That's why most of the people around us, they have no idea what we're talking about, because they still have their original soul portion that they were born with. So nothing's different. Nothing's changed to them. It's exactly like it always has been and should be in this reality. It's just different to us because, I mean, say this version of myself still had the original portion of my soul that this version of myself was born with on the same date I was born on. Nothing's different. Everything's just as it should be in this reality. But of course, the portion of my soul that was in this replica version of myself is in a totally different version of myself in a totally different reality, even though it's similar, and they're experiencing the same thing. What it's revealing. And I know that because every time I shift into another reality, I still have the same videos and whatnot in the channel. It's really quite fascinating. That's why I have the channel Plurality of Earth is because it shows the variations and differences on the Earth, and that shows that we shifted, and it also proves. The library would also prove, again, the libraries don't leave. When our souls shift in this quantum shifting aspect of the Mandela effect, that's the only thing that shifts. Everything else stays in the reality. So you can't bring the library of the YouTube channel with you or anything. So in every reality, it's going to represent the Earth that reality it was recorded in. Nothing leaves. You're not going to, that's not why you find residual evidence. You're going to find residual evidence because, of that very obvious reason. It's going to leak out, in most aspects, but certainly, like I said, not the United States Mint. They were very careful in keeping, of course, they were oblivious to, the fact that they have multiple realities. The United States Mint is oblivious to the fact that the United States Mint in some realities used a completely different person on the dime. Again, both persons were excellent candidates. Both persons were no doubt being, discussed on who we should use in each reality. But personally, I just love seeing the variations and differences. I expect to see residual evidence. It's very obvious. It didn't sneak over with us when we shifted. The residual evidence, we consider residual evidence, has always been here. And again, the choices are in every reality. Same with movies. No doubt, the script is exactly the same in every reality, and the story is exactly the same. But when it comes down to the variations and differences, that's the editors that are doing it. And I noticed some movies and even some programs have multiple editors. And the more editors you have, the more variations and differences you're going to see. In some realities, they cut a part out or did it different in the take, but they probably tried it all the ways in each take, but chose the certain way we see it in this reality. Whereas in other realities, the same editors made a different choice. And whatever influences them is pretty interesting. I personally think it's the Earths that influence all of us. And the Earths, of course, are different in each reality. So the Earths obviously have their own unique personality and character, obviously. It's, because we do, so why wouldn't the Earth? Because everything around us is made from the Earth. Crystal, made from the Earth. This beautiful stone is made from the planet Earth. Everything we see, metal, glass, everything, paper, wood, our bodies, everything is all from the Earth. So they're going to stay with the Earth, everything. And including all the multiple choices that the designer of whatever logo made. And that's where we're going to see it. That makes so much sense if you think about it. And, again, if you buy into this theory that we all have a parallel existence on a multitude of Earths, all in one dimension, it's not, universal or, it's not universal, it's all in this one galaxy. It seems to be so far on just the Sagittarius arm in the Orion spur or Orion inner arm, depending on what reality, but it's tied into the Sagittarius arm. So it's all one and the same. So we can only assume that we have other realities on the other galactic arms. So in fact, I've done videos about this, what perhaps perpetrated the Mandela effect. It's no doubt because it's showing us that creation started from the galactic center, all matter in the galaxy, the solar systems, the suns, the stars, everything from the galactic center. And as they age, they venture out the arm. And as they venture out the arm, they grow. That's why we see the super Earths on the tip. But I kind of think that, it's obvious that the galaxies would then calve. It's very obvious. They don't collide, they calve. I mean, everything's like backwards of what they're telling us. We live in an inverted society. But they obviously calve. So I propose that maybe the galaxy in the Sagittarius arm in particular is calving as we speak. In other words, the Milky Way galaxy has reached its capacity, but yet the galactic center is still churning out matter. It never stops, doesn't take a break. So if everything's parallel, well, then there's still parallel solar systems being created as we speak, and being, as they, again, once they're created, they venture out the arm. And the whole solar system grows. Sun, the planets, obviously, because we've seen it, we've experienced it. We've come from realities where the Earths are massive, the solar system is massive, the sun, you can't even look at it for a fraction of a second. Otherwise, you see big yellow dots in your eyes for several minutes afterwards. But here you can actually look at the sun. This is a newer sun. This is a newer Earth, even though it looks older. But that's the paradox. But that's could be what's causing the Mandela effect to occur. The galaxy's calving as we speak. And of course, that wouldn't happen for millions of years. So this is something that's never happened before, the Mandela effect. Nobody expected this to happen. Maybe that's what the Mayan calendar at the end of 2012, in December 21st, I believe. Maybe that's when the Mandela effect became full-fledged, or maybe that's when the galactic arm was calving, and they knew about it. So it's not, to me, it's not a sinister event that's happening whatsoever. It wasn't caused by human beings. It wasn't caused by evil spirits that do, of course, exist, but they don't have the power to do what the Mandela effect's doing. Only, the supreme creator of all this can do that to our souls, allow them to shift into other realities. My guess is that's obviously never, ever happened before. And of course, the Mandela effect started before 2012. In fact, I believe it was like 2010 when the phrase the Mandela effect was coined, because those people that experienced it recall Nelson Mandela perishing in prison. And of course, many realities, he was liberated from prison and ascended to presidency of South Africa. So, I've never been in a reality, even though I know I'm there. There's replica versions of myself in those realities that have been sharing my soul since I was born, that have experienced Nelson Mandela dying in prison. But personally, this portion of my soul has never been in those reality where that is the case. But I know I'm there. That's what's amazing. I'm oblivious to it, but I know there's because other people experience, came from those realities. In fact, one subscriber, Jose Martinez, actually seen me in Denver, Colorado in the mid 70s, and he had no idea I lived there at the time. But I did live there at the time, and he recalled seeing me at I believe it was a center where we had to evacuate some reason. Something happened, and he saw me there. And he came from a reality where Nelson Mandela perished in prison, where the New Zealand's at the, what did he say, 10 o'clock position. I recall it at the 2 o'clock, and here it's at the 4 o'clock. But yet that proves that we're in all the realities, but we're oblivious to it. But the Mandela effect's showing us that, giving us a glimpse that we did that's exactly a fact. And it's really remarkable. I consider the Mandela effect a miraculous event, just like in Revelation chapter 10, verse 7. It's in some translations it says that after the seventh angel sounds his trumpet, their trumpet, the secrets will be revealed. In some translations, it actually says it'll be good news. Now, I mean, to me, it is. Not only is it revealing incredible things about humans and why we do the things we do and why we experience the things we do, and also helping us understand what we're experiencing with the Mandela effect, but it also, it's an obvious fact that, the fact that it's happening must be showing us that it's ushering in something. And I believe because it's revealing, and it's all about knowledge at this point. Because, again, a lot of people are paying too much attention to what the Mandela effect's doing, looking for residual evidence and claiming that that's things that came over with us and things like that. Instead of noticing changes and differences. I mean, I like to do it with the geographically and whatnot, but we shouldn't be too concerned about what the Mandela effect's doing. We should be totally concerned in what it's showing us. To me, that's the most important thing, and because I've always wondered about so many things when I was growing up. And everything I've ever wondered about has been answered because of what the Mandela effect's revealing. I mean, I can go on, but I could do a video about each thing I've ever wondered about and how the Mandela effect has explained it. And again, it all comes back to, if you have that understanding and belief and have it inculcated in your heart that we do have this parallel existence, we do have a fractured and splintered soul that is in each portion, in each of these realities. Now, how many realities exist? Who knows? I think it's infinite, personally. Why would it be a finite number? Like 12 or 7 realities. I was counting the realities in the previous channel that I deleted, and I felt uncomfortable about that. And it was, going into 80-something realities. It's crazy. But I could have been totally wrong. It could have been only 3 realities or 4 realities, and just noticing things you didn't notice before and things like that. So I felt uncomfortable about counting the realities, but that's why I deleted that and starting off fresh. But again, this video is about residual evidence. We should expect to find it, and we should need to understand why it's there. It's not something that was taken with us. We have to realize that our soul, even when we perish, it still lives on, and it's always, going to be probably rebirthed into, another, time. I mean, obviously the souls are ancient. Everybody's soul is ancient, and that's what we have to keep in mind. And it's splintered and fractured. It's very obvious, but when we die, only we can't take nothing with us, with our soul. This Mandela effect is all spiritual. When we shift, it's only our portions of our soul that are, like when the musical chairs, when Music stops. We sit down in a chair, but the chair is another reality that we always existed in. And that's what the Mandela effect's doing. It's just remarkable to realize that you're in another body that has always existed, that was born the same day you were, and has always been there. And it's the Mandela effect showing us, how many realities are there? Who knows? How many times are we going to shift? Who knows? But I think the shifting aspect is very obviously very important. Think about what that does to your soul. It's never happened before. Even though your soul is ancient, it's never experienced another reality. It's always the portion of your soul when it was created, God only knows how long ago. It was created, splintered, and fractured. Every reality has already existed. So, it's just never happened before. If you lived in multiple previous existences, you never experienced anything like the Mandela effect. This is something that has never been expected. And think about it, it makes a lot of sense that it wouldn't be. So I'm kind of dragging on and diverting a little bit, digressing, whatnot. It's easy to do when it comes to Mandela effect, but this video again is specifically about residual evidence, and I hope I explained it right. I hope that makes sense because, again, it's just, why else would it be? Because there's no way it can shift with this. Only our soul portions, our soul is doing that. It's all spiritual. And yes, you're going to find residual evidence. We should expect this. Just like we should expect the variations and differences on the globe or map or earth or things around you. I notice sometimes trees are different, but they're still the same tree, but they're slightly different. You can't expect them to be identical. Just like you can't expect the body to be identical. Our skeletons are totally different in these realities. They're more robust. I'm like thrilled to be in these versions of myself. They're so much more robust. I mean, the humans are quite frail in those realities that are on the outer reaches, but more refined, if you will. And no doubt even though they're frail, they're able to be strong because there's so many replica versions of themselves in realities where they are more robust, where the heart is larger, the liver is larger, everything. The rib cage is more stronger. There's like 0 floating ribs. There are, but they're like stubs. But I remember the lower rib cage were all full ribs and floating. There's no connection in the front. Here they are. Which makes more sense, because again, that was another thing I always wondered, why is this human skeleton so frail? But they're not here. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. So again, I hope that makes sense and about the residual evidence. And I apologize so much about the no comments. Please forgive me, and I totally understand if you're so resentful of that, you don't even subscribe or watch the videos. That makes a lot of sense, because I wouldn't have either, because when I was looking at videos on YouTube about, anything, whatever, Mandela effect, whatever, I was offended when the channel didn't allow comments to the point where I wouldn't subscribe. So I totally understand about that. But I still am going to do these videos. It's therapeutic for me. And also, hopefully it helps you viewers to understand really why we see residual evidence. It makes so much sense. Because again, it's impossible for them to come over with this. This is only a spiritual thing. Purely spiritual. And it's cleansing our soul when we shift. Think about it. Again, it never happened before. But yet it's not affecting us. Some people get ill when they shift, and they know bad headaches and things like that. I can't tell personally. I know when I shift, it's no doubt during REM sleep. That's when musical chairs will occur, or the quantum flux. And you can wake up in a totally different reality and not even realize it. That's why I always look at the things around me, see if I notice any variations and differences. But again, for the most part, everything every reality and my reality is virtually identical. Decisions, surroundings, you name it. Again, there's sometimes the road will be different. You know, you notice a hill where there wasn't before, but it's not, that didn't change. It's impossible. Just like the earth didn't change. It's impossible for the earth to change into a quarter of its size in a totally different location in the Milky Way galaxy. That's impossible. Everything is impossible, except, you know, the fact that once you realize our soul is splintered and fractured, and each portion isn't another replica, total replica version of yourself, with some variations and differences, but overall it's virtually identical. At least in my case. I know others are experiencing different things. Again, if if an editor or a designer of a logo was experiencing the Mandela effect, they would notice huge variations and differences in between the realities. Just like the captain or helmsman of a ship that goes through transverses the Panama Canal on a regular basis. Now, if they were affected with the Mandela effect, it would be very bizarre for them, because the Panama Canal actually goes from west to east in the middle of it to get to the Pacific Ocean from the Atlantic. That's crazy. That's literally virtually backwards. So if somebody on the ship was experiencing the Mandela effect and they go through the canal all the time, it would be bizarre. They would think the compass is broken. They wouldn't be able to talk about it because people would think they're crazy and they would lose their job. So it must be really perplexing for somebody like that may be experiencing it. Again, not, only at the most 1 to 5% of the human population on Earth is experiencing the Mandela effect. So, again, my case, I have very typical, uneventful existence and past, if you will. And they're all virtually identical. I didn't have to make, any choice I made firmly. I wasn't, I guess people that can't pick a color and takes forever to pick a color to paint a room or the outside of the house or something, there's going to be variations and differences in their realities. But if they make an instant decision, don't have many choices in front of them, that's what I do. If I want to paint a house, I know what color I want to paint it. And so in every reality, it's going to be identical. But if I was, if I was indecisive and took forever to pick a color and had 1,000 choices in front of me, of course there's going to be variations and differences. And we do see that with the neighbors' houses and things like that. But again, that's looking to see what the Mandela effect's doing. We should be more interested in what it's showing us, not what it's doing. I mean, that's interesting, but personally, I got bored with that. I wanted to know why it was happening. I wanted to get deep into it, the meat and potatoes, get a clear understanding. And you start eliminating the things that are impossible, and whatever's left, as improbable as it is, must be the answer. We must have a fractured and splintered soul. We must have multiple realities where each portion of our soul is in a replica version of ourselves in a virtually identical reality. It's obvious that that's happening. It makes so much sense once you buy into that theory and have it in your heart. Once you really, really grab, take the knife and dig into that, then things might make more sense. And when it's really, really in your heart, it actually has a lot of benefit. It really does. I mean, as many of you may know, I lost my twin brother on Christmas Day. He passed away right here in my house, right here in this room. And thanks to the Mandela effect, it helped me to cope with it. Because I know he wasn't experiencing the Mandela effect, but I guarantee he died in every reality in my room, on the same day, in every single reality. He passed away. And we know that sometimes, that's a whole nother video, because we know that Nelson Mandela, he has no idea that in some realities he passed away. So what happened to the portion of the soul in those replica versions of himself that passed away? even though you're not experiencing the Mandela effect, we have to realize that even heaven is parallel. His soul probably stayed in limbo in that realm until the other replica versions of himself that was liberated from prison and ascended to presidency of South Africa passed away. And until that point, then the rebirth was able to happen. But in most cases, like mine or my brother's, he passed away in every single reality. But understanding the Mandela effect and realizing just how incredible the human soul is and that it can never perish, I understand that he's in a good place right now. Each portion of his soul. He might not, again, I couldn't even talk about the Mandela effect to him because he wasn't experiencing it. But I did get to see many, many replica versions of my twin brother in each reality I shifted in. And same with everyone else around you. Look at it that way. Wow, I get to see another replica version of my father or my brother. It's fascinating. They might be a little different personality and character, but I haven't noticed that in my case. Same with me personally. Nobody's looking at me and saying you're different, you changed. So each portion of my soul must be have virtually the identical personality and character. But that's not going to be the case with everybody. But with me it is. So again, I hope again I'm diverting a little bit, but we should expect to see residual evidence and look at it for what it is and really understand. And it is very special, and it is kind of rare, but you are going to find it, and there is an explanation for it. So with that, I thank you for watching, and we'll talk at you later. Love you.